everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Nekkra and it's time for another VGC Series 12 team breakdown that is at the top of the meta and the leaderboards. Today's video is going over how Groudon is scorching the competition. Your typical Groudon team is at its core a Sun team. Taking a look at past Sun teams and their performance in previous VGC Series rule sets, it's pretty easy to see why Series 12 would take that archetype and give it a modern twist. What's cool about Groudon teams now is that they're super versatile, and the fact that you can pair them with Pokemon other than Zacian and still make the team really strong. In fact, we've seen Groudon paired with other restricted Pokemon such as Lunala, Yveltal, and both combined forms of Calyrex. Most recently, Event Horizon made it to the top 12 of the 4th Hatterene Series tournament with a Groudon and Xerneas team, and Diana Bros made it to the top 8 with a Groudon and Calyrex Shadow Rider team. Choosing which restricted Pokemon to pair with Groudon isn't always easy, but teams that pair Groudon with a non-Zacian restricted partner typically look at one that can really help cover the weaknesses of the other Pokemon on the team. So let's take a look at common partners first. Taking the approach that Groudon is a Sun team, the most obvious Pokemon to include on a Groudon team include Pokemon that can utilize that weather to their advantage, such as Gigantamax Charizard and Gigantamax Venusaur. Their abilities are really why these Pokemon function so great as a part of this team, because Charizard gets a massive power spike with Solar Power, and Venusaur gets a huge speed buff with Chlorophyll. Umbreon makes another great addition to the team thanks to its natural bulk and because Moonlight is able to restore more HP under sunny conditions, which guarantees that Umbreon is going to be on the field long enough to provide a bunch of support through moves like Snarl and Yawn. Foul Play is also a super important move in a Dynamax format thanks to the popularity of the item weakness policy. Because Foul Play calculates damage based on the target's attack stat, if weakness policy has sharply raised that, then Foul Play is doing a nuclear amount of damage. While Umbreon, Charizard, and Venusaur have all been a quintessential part of Sun teams, they're not the only options to consider. If you're thinking about leaving Charizard on the bench, you may want to include Incineroar instead, since Intimidate Cycling and Fake Out Pressure are super useful tools in a meta that heavily revolves around Zacian. Plus, the buff to Incineroar's Fire-type attacks under Sun is pretty nice too. An Electric type is also great coverage to add onto this team, which can take on the forms like Regieleki or Thundurus. Both of these Pokemon operate in different ways, with Regieleki leaning more towards speed control and outright damage, and Thundurus' Defiant ability really scaring away Intimidators that would threaten your powerful physical attackers like Zacian and Groudon. Okay. An Electric type is also great coverage to add onto this team, which can take forms like Regieleki or Thundurus. Both of these Pokemon operate in different ways, with Regieleki leaning more towards speed control and outright damage, and Thundurus' Defiant ability really helping to scare away Intimidators from your strong physical attackers like Groudon or Zacian. Either choice that you make will heavily depend on what other Pokemon you've decided to slot onto the team, and of course, which restricted you've decided to pair with that Groudon. The analysis in the rest of the video will be aided by the rental team compendium that Victory Road has put together for Series 12. There's an entire section dedicated to other Groudon teams that we'll be using as examples for team building around different restricted pairs and can provide rental teams for. With so many options to pair with Groudon, you're looking at a myriad of different playstyles. Some of the most common restricted partners for Groudon are ones that we mentioned at the beginning of the video: Lunala, Yveltal, and both combined forms of Calyrex. When building a team around a restricted pair that other than Zacian, with so many options available to pair with Groudon, you're looking at a myriad of different playstyles. Some of the most common partners for Groudon were ones that we mentioned at the beginning of the video, including Lunala, Yveltal, and both combined forms of Calyrex. When you're using a restricted other than Zacian, you're tending to look at teams that have two different modes of play, Sun and something else. I really like teams that have different playstyle options because it allows you to have more answers to more teams. However, the downside of that is that you're not really hitting the same power cap that you would be when team building around a specific mode of play. Restricteds like Lunala or Calyrex Ice Rider allow you to have a secondary Trick Room option, which is really handy against other Sun teams, as well as teams that rely on fast speed control. You may want more pieces to support Trick Room in this case, perhaps a Mimikyu to enable your Calyrex Ice Rider, or an Amoonguss to take advantage of Lunala's Trick Room. The primary damage dealers on the team will be the 2 restricted Pokemon, so supporting them well is key. For example, Jayden has put together a great Lunala Groudon team that includes 2 ways to set Trick Room in Lunala and Porygon 2, physical and special attack defense with Intimidate and Area Impulse, and of course powerful damage coverage with Groudon, Venusaur, Lunala, and Thundurus. This team allows a lot of potential options for Dynamax, looking mostly at Venusaur, obviously, but also Thundurus if it's able to get set up in the right conditions with its Defiant ability. Code Tsukide has done something similar with Calyrex Ice Rider, using Mimikyu to set Trick Room, but also leaning more heavily into a Sun mode, keeping a lot of the key Sun elements on the team. Calyrex Shadow Rider and Yveltal are also great counterparts to Groudon, but they play pretty differently. Calyrex Shadow Rider is also going to be considered a primary damage dealer for a team like this, so it's more important to drop more of the Sun Core in order to add in more Pokemon that are really going to aid in Calyrex Shadow Rider's special attack output, as well as cover its weaknesses. North reached top 4 in the Victory Road Series 12 challenge with this Groudon Shadow Rider Calyrex team, opting for some interesting support in the Storm Drain Gastrodon, good into the Kyogre matchup, and Prankster Eerie Impulse Thundurus to keep the main damage dealers safe from super effective special attacks. In many Yveltal-based teams, Yveltal is used as support and a potential late-game sweeper. A typical Yveltal build will of course include its signature move Oblivion Wing, which restores 75% HP of the damage dealt during a successful attack, but will also use moves like Snarl and Foul Play to allow your Pokemon more staying power. Yveltal's access to a Dark Aura boosted Sucker Punch can also be a massive thorn in your opponent's side. Yveltal on a Groudon team allows you to keep the structure of a typical Groudon Sun team, while also adding in really powerful flying type coverage and a bulky late game anchor. What I really want to take a look at though in our example battle is Event Horizon's Xerneas Groudon team. This team was designed first around Xerneas, adding in the Groudon and Sun core elements in order to keep Xerneas safe from the ever-present Zacian. Now, when you think about that, yeah, Xerneas doesn't make a lot of sense to have in a meta that is so Zacian heavy, but Fairy typing is so good against Dark-type Pokemon such as Yveltal, Grimmsnarl, and of course, Incineroar running around, so why not give it a shot? Let's go ahead and jump into this practice battle. Alright, now that Series 12 VGC ladder is active, we have hopped into an online battle against Steven, featuring Zacian, Yveltal. We also have Venusaur, Landorus, Grimmsnarl, and Torkoal. Lots of really interesting elements here. We just talked about how Yveltal can be a super strong partner for Groudon. Let's see how it does against a Xerneas. There are certainly problems on this team, given that we do have the Zacian to worry about. But there are also Sun elements that might also prove a bit problematic for our other Pokemon on the team, such as Kartana. One of the things that I feel like is going to be really good in this matchup is Charizard. It doesn't have to deal with the Intimidate drop coming in from that Landorus, and also puts on a lot of pressure onto something like that Venusaur. I think also starting out with Groudon can be super strong, except of course you do have the Landorus. So, kind of feel like maybe we go Charizard and Indeedee for this one, and then we go ahead and put Groudon and Xerneas in the back. Groudon can be really good against those Steel-type Pokemon like that Zacian, and of course with Charizard as well, maybe we end up getting into a position where we can just throw a G-Max Wildfire at it, boost it in the sun, and just knock it out before we get our Xerneas all set up for hopefully a potential Yveltal late game. So let's see how this goes. Zacian and Yveltal just to kick things off right away. That's super smart, just knowing that both of these Pokemon can put on a ton of pressure. Zacian Behemoth Blade into Charizard is not perfect. It's not great. For us, Charizard is certainly going to be taking a lot of damage, especially if Yveltal decides that it is going to double target into us. Indeedee makes a very obvious choice, though. So what I might do, though, actually, is I'm going to max Airstream the Yveltal, and I'm also going to Helping Hand. I feel like Yveltal has a really easy target in the Indeedee. With that Psychic Seed, we should be okay versus any of the attacks coming out from the Yveltal. Hopefully we wouldn't be just like one hit knocked out, but it heavily depends on what this Zacian decides to do and whether or not that Yveltal does decide to Dynamax. But let's go! Charizard Gigantamaxing first. That's always a good sign if the other trainer is also Dynamaxing. And that speed boost is good for us as well, because if Charizard does, you know, deal with the Helping Hand, or if Charizard does deal with the Zacian, excuse me, ooh, not going to actually use Behemoth Blade, which was the thing that we were worried about surviving or not. So. Yep, here comes a foul play. Very much expected, but that Psychic Seed is so good. And we also don't have a high attack stat, so we're not taking too much damage. I'm going to G-Max Wildfire, definitely from Blast Burn. And I'm also going to see whether or not Expanding Force is going to do anything to this Zacian. I don't think so, though. But our primary objective at this point is to try to break that substitute and then also get in that additional G-Max Wildfire damage that both these Pokemon will be taking at the end of the turn. But, yep, here comes the Behemoth Blade. Let's see if the Charizard survives this. Typically you do, because it's not very effective, but that is still a ton of damage. Alright. Still very much going after the Indeedee here. That's really good for us. Indeedee in this instance can also go for something like a Follow Me to be able to keep the Charizard safe, but I believe one more Gigantamax Wildfire into the Zacian is going to be good for that. And I'm also going to protect the Indeedee just in case the Yveltal decides to do something like Sucker Punch. I'm just hoping that Yveltal doesn't target the Charizard with the Sucker Punch if it does have it as a part of its moveset. Can certainly be a very strong choice. Oh, it's going over to the Charizard! Ah, we definitely don't survive that. Okay, but we did set up the Gigantamax Wildfire damage, which will certainly help. And Zacian is going for another substitute. I was really hoping that we could get the Zacian to a place that it would not be able to set up another substitute, or at least not feel comfortable to. But I think this is a perfect opportunity for us to bring in our Groudon. Because I think that Follow Me would have been a little bit tough. But I am going to Precipice Blades here, and I am also going to Expanding Force. Sucker Punch certainly knocks out Indeedee here, though. I think actually bringing in Xerneas might have been a better choice, because with the Zacian being faster than the Yveltal, it would have more than likely ended up KOing the Indeedee. Especially when both of the opponent's Pokemon are kind of on their last legs. But here comes the Behemoth Blade. It's probably going into Groudon. Yep. Nice Citrus Berry activation for our Groudon. But yeah, I don't think that this Expanding Force is enough to break this up. Except I would have KO'd the Zacian, so I think that the Zacian substitute is actually not going to, okay, okay. The substitute does not, cool. Got the KO onto the Zacian, which was our biggest threat into our Xerneas. And that is the power of G-Max Wildfire. I really love the Charizard inclusion on this team. It's just been so good, especially getting the max Airstream boosts for the Indeedee. It's really helping us be able to kind of have this strike first mentality. But Venusaur is obviously a problem when paired in the sun. You can certainly go for something like a fast sleep powder, which would not be good. And we are in a position now that absolutely this Venusaur could Gigantamax. So I'm going to go for a Precipice Blades with the Groudon, and I believe I'm going to protect the Indeedee because we really, really want to be able to get our Xerneas onto the field, and a Follow Me next turn would be very, very good for that. But here comes the Gigantamax Venusaur. A Gigantamaxing is much better for us. I wouldn't have wanted the Xerneas to take a Sleep Powder. So this buys a lot of time, and since we ended up activating the sun should disappear in the next few turns. Torkoal doesn't just reset that. So yep, Groudon is not going to be able to get off another attack here, I don't think. Oh wait, Venusaur went after the Indeedee. Okay, I can work with this. I can work with this. For sure. Except Venusaur avoided the attack. Oh no. Okay. So that didn't really work out as planned. Obviously, G-Max Vine Lash is also super strong. And the fact that we only have Xerneas left is problematic. The sun may be gone, but Venusaur is super capable of being able to dish out big damage, especially if it has, you know, a poison type attack. But I really don't feel like we have any other option right now than to Geomancy, hoping that we do survive something that is coming our way this next turn. Oh, it also has Max Quake. Ooh, that's so good for buffing up the special defense. Xerneas is able to take that hit. Love it. Certainly going to help. But let's see what this Xerneas can do. Definitely not the conditions I would have wanted to bring Xerneas into. But that's okay. Let's see what we can get done. What is this Torkoal gonna do? Yawn. Oh, of course. Torkoal has so much utility. Not only can it like set the sun, but this is really our only chance to be able to get off big damage here. And I feel like I feel like Dazzling Gleam is absolutely our best bet. But we are in a position now that Max Guard or a Double Protect coming in from our opponent puts us in a position where we fall asleep next turn, and based on the damage that we took from Venusaur, and also Torkoal, and also the G-Max Vine Lash damage we're getting every turn, this is definitely going to be a loss for us. Nice that we don't have to deal with the Venusaur in Gigantamax anymore, but we're taking our mandatory turn of sleep this turn. So GG's to our opponent. absolutely a really, really cool team. I love that there is a team out there that I can use to practice. With Xerneas, definitely feel like positioning matters a lot in this team. To just make sure that Xerneas is in a position to be able to deal the big damage that it needs to, especially when you have tons and tons of threats. Like the Zacian was super concerning, and of course there are many other things like being able to buff up your special defense that make it super difficult to actually, yeah, do your thing. Ooh, Burning Chelsea is such a cool animation. But yeah, that's it. That's the game. GG's, and I had a lot of fun playing with that team. Building around Groudon offers you so much flexibility, so try playing around with different restricted pairs and supporting Pokemon to find something that you really vibe with. With live events just around the corner, with our first VGC Regional happening in Salt Lake City, Utah in March, this is the perfect time to experiment with lots of teams and playstyles, which Groudon provides. Thanks so much for watching this VGC Series 12 team breakdown, and I'll see you all very soon.